Good evening, Chuck Grigsby. We're doing the East Lansing Study Committee on Independent Police Oversight. It's March 22nd, 2021, 6 p.m. Thanks for joining me. And us on the commission, we are a commission creating another commission called the Independent Police Oversight Commission. So we'll be doing some different things with policy recommendations and dealing with complaints and things like that. So we're working on that information so that the public understands what we're creating. Council can weigh in on it, make the decision about how they truly want that to be, and then the community to be also involved in what their duties will be once they volunteer for the commission. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to hopefully helping you and your community with issues that you may have
Justin, can you hear me?
or that you would want to adjust to in regards to having a police independent oversight commission in your community. So thank you. So we're about 5 minutes out from getting started. So I'll hold on there for me. And that should be it. A lot to load it. And you got about 4 minutes of dead space. That's your meeting. And it's up to win. Diane, to your notes, we're starting with page 13, item number 7. Is that correct? Thank you. Office. And Justin, are you planning on throwing that up on the screen again as you did last time? Parents, appreciate you. Oh, I better get rid of my music here. All right, I'm officially get rid of the background music and be having that playing during my meeting.
right, Chuck, it's 6 o'clock. You ready?
I am. Thank you.
All right, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded. All right, we're live.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us for our Independent Study Committee on Independent Police Oversight Commission meeting, March 22nd, 2021, 6 p.m. Appreciate you all being here and everyone that's tuning in tonight. Can you please go ahead and do roll call, Diane?
Captain Boyle. Sorry, was muted. Here attending remotely from East Lansing in Ingham County, Michigan. Sade Colwood.
Sade Colwood attending virtually from Douglas, Massachusetts, Worcester County.
Kelly Ellsworth Etchison.
Kelly Ellsworth Etchison attending virtually from Ingham County, East Lansing.
Chuck Grigsby.
East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County, here, present.
Second Carell.
Present, attending virtually from Mason, Michigan, Ingham County.
Ellen Josephson.
Present, attending virtually from Clarkston, Michigan, Oakland.
Rodney Davis. Chris Root.
Present, attending from East Lansing, Ingham County.
Quentin Tyler.
Present, attending from Lexington, Kentucky.
Eric Williams.
Here, East Lansing, Ingham County.
Brian Bacon.
Present, attending virtually East Lansing, Clinton County.
And we heard from Noel Garcia Jr., who's unable to attend tonight.
Thank you, Diane. We are on to item 1.2, approval of the agenda 3/22/21. I believe we need to make a small adjustment to the agenda due to a couple of our commissioners who have to get off of here pretty early. So I wanted to entertain a motion for moving item 4.1 and item 4.2 and switching those around. If I may get a motion from someone on the floor.
I move that we reverse items 4.1 and 4.2.
Is there a second? It was moved by Vice Chair Root. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Colwood. Is there any discussion on changing those items around? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 So moved. All right, with that change, then approval of the agenda 3/22/21. Is there a motion to approve the new agenda with the amendment on there?
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Is there a second? All right. Moved by Vice Chair Root and then seconded also by Commissioner Colwood for the amended 3/22/21 agenda. Is there a discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right. And if you are off camera for whatever good reason that you are, please make sure on your motions or your participation that you come off mic and let us know what's going on for your actions, if you don't mind. No worries on that. All right, we'll move to item 1.3, approval of the minutes of March 8th, 2021. Did everyone get a chance to look at that? Is there any amendments or changes to that? All right. I'll entertain a motion for that, for the approval of those minutes.
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Josephson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Harrell. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So moved. All right, I'll move us down to written communications for item 1.4. It's most of it's correspondence that we've had that we need to make public. Did anyone want to talk on any of the items in the written communications that's listed? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move on from written communication. Hi, Justin. Do we have anyone on the line by chance?
We do not.
Okay. So due that we don't have anyone on the line, we'll go ahead and move past item 1.5, limiting public comment to 5 minutes, if that's okay with everyone else. And we'll jump on down to we have no communication from the audience on 2, no new business, and then we're down to old business pretty quickly. And as we've changed already, we're going to move around our discussion for community input meeting March 29th, 2021 as our first item in old business as 4.1. And I believe Vice Chair Root is going to lead that discussion.
Sure. Chuck pointed out that he does a lot of talking during the recommendations discussion, so asked if I would share this part about the community meeting on the 29th. So I can give a little progress report that the city staff have done a lot of the work they promised to do on publicity, sending out the press release, putting a post on Facebook, putting a Facebook event up, which now says there are 16 people coming and 37 interested. It was in e-dialogues on Friday, and the public notice has been posted, and Diane has worked on the agenda. So we've moved forward. We also had a very good meeting of the subgroup working on those plans, and we're meeting again tomorrow. You can see the result of at our meeting last week. We decided to redraft the questions so that you would have them tonight to review. So questions that had been previously on our agenda are abandoned in favor of ones that we think are a lot better for your consideration. And there had also been a suggestion, I think Cedric made a while ago, that there be some kind of written document about reflecting some of our thoughts about recommendations that people could have an opportunity to read before that meeting if they chose to. So there is a draft of that document also. Quentin joined us because of his expertise in facilitating meetings, which we very much appreciate. And Quentin, do you want to say anything about how we're going to run the March 29th meeting?
Sure. So I think what we're going to do is Chuck's going to start off bringing a welcome and introducing, those of us who are on the call as the group, as the committee. And then from that, I'm going to establish some norms in which we're going to operate, and then kind of go into a little bit of a brief overview, of our charge and also the work we've done to this day. And then what we're going to do is have 6 to 10 folks per breakout room with those questions. And as a result, we're going to come back and allow anybody that wants to have any open comment the opportunity to do so, and kind of talk about next steps.
Thanks. I think that's similar to what we've talked about before, but it's good to hear that kind of in place. Do people have any comments about how that meeting will operate? The other thing that's a part of that is that at our last meeting, we asked folks to volunteer to either chair or take minutes in the small groups, because Zoom cannot record simultaneously things going on in multiple breakout sessions. So we are counting on ourselves to take very good minutes in those subgroups, because those will be the records of those subgroups. I think the planning committee can just, send out a reminder to folks about what they're going to do. Lots of people, almost everybody volunteered to do something, which was quite wonderful. So we'll just send you a reminder, and Justin created a memo that is attached for some good details about how to use the technology for breakouts. So that was really great to have that done, not right at the last minute, so everybody can take a look at that. So I think we can move along to look at the 2 draft documents. Yeah.
If you guys have specific things you want reflected in my council comments for tomorrow, I can use those comments as a last commercial if you want to give me a paragraph or exactly what you want stated to the public. I'll use that as part of my comments in tomorrow's council meeting.
Sure.
If you want a short, just give me a burst or someone email me, anyone, and I'll make sure that gets brought across.
Thank you for that offer. That's a great idea. And that's a reminder to all of us. That's a particular role that Ron can play because he's a council member. It would be really wonderful to have, twice as many people who are currently signed up come. So I hope that everybody will, send words out to their own networks. There had also been suggestions of sending it to a couple of lists, email lists that the city has. One of those is the Council of Neighborhood Presidents, which is meeting tonight. And I think they haven't gotten any notice of this meeting yet. And it would be great if they could get a notice and be asked to share that with their neighborhoods, if that's still possible. And also, my recollection is that something like 45 people applied to be on this study committee. And so that sounds like a group of people very interested in this topic. And it would be wonderful, they all provided their email addresses. It would be wonderful if they could all hear about the meeting on the 29th. Cedric?
I have this already. Was there a link that was emailed out to us for the Facebook event that we could pass on?
It's in the press release that Diane shared. Do you remember that? It's kind of at the bottom of the press release.
Okay, I'll find it.
Okay.
It's also on the city's, on their Facebook page.
Okay, thank you.
Right, you go to the Facebook page and click on events, and it's there. Good question. It's good to have things handy. Another possibility is the folks for outreach from the city is folks who applied to be on city council, whether it's possible that they could hear about the 29th also. So are there any other suggestions about publicity from people before we go on to look at the questions? Okay, so we've got now a list of 4 questions on the topics of accountability, transparency, community, and trust. The idea is that all subgroups will simultaneously be discussing the same questions. That's how we'll be able to make sense of what we're hearing from everybody when we add it all up. So this is the list of questions we've got at this point. And we're happy to entertain suggestions about it now, or you could send ideas to either Kelly, Quentin, Chuck, or myself. We are meeting tomorrow. I think we're meeting early afternoon tomorrow. Does it look like the direction we need to be going in? Any feedback? Okay. Any suggestions about the 2-page summary document? Well, this shows us the benefit of having people take extra responsibility to do work before meetings. I will take that as affirmation of good work by the subgroup, unless I hear otherwise. I really appreciate the folks have taken time. Okay, any last comments about the March 29th meeting? The key thing is bring people out. Let's get 40 people. We haven't had this kind of meeting since COVID, where people have had the opportunity to do anything other than, a couple of minute public comment. So it will be really, really wonderful. A lot of people join us. Over to you, Chuck.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for handling that portion of the business there. Appreciate that. I don't know why that group was so quiet to you, Anya, like that, but No worries. Like you said, we're just doing good work, and then we're just going to keep it moving. So we'll move to item 4.2, and we are going to pick up where we left off from our discussion from section 4. As you can see there, continue 7 through -51, section 4 recommendations, and revisit 55, 62, 2, and 3. So we will start churning that out. If anyone during this process has any suggestions or comments outside of the work as far as what we're doing with our time, let me know and we'll go from there. But I'll just pick up where we left off. We'll be on item number 7, which would be on your page 13 if you have it in front of you. Starting off with the word office. And as I've done before, I'll read it out only for the communities aspect, even though I know you guys can see what I'm looking at, but it will be for their benefit. So I'll jump into it. Item 7, office. The commission will have office space and equipment separate from the police department and separate from City Hall. The city shall provide the commission with a budget sufficient to cover the cost of its office needs. I know City Manager Lahanas had, I think, maybe talked to this about kind of really the structure of commissions being where they are in City Hall, and making sure that we have an office space. I'm not quite sure the separate part there. Maybe we can discuss that, but I would like to get to hear from anyone else in regards to item 7. See, I can make sure I see everyone. Yes, Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
I'm wondering if we're envisioning an actual physical space dedicated solely to the commission that is going to be open a certain number of hours per week, knowing that this is a commission of volunteers. I don't know if they would necessarily need to use a full office space full time.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. I know you spoke to this, maybe possibly City Manager Lahanas, and just if you don't mind, can you just talk about kind of really the structure of how our commissions and where they meet, so then that way we can clear up, the reality of what we can do with the office space, or if there's office space, or if there's an opportunity to make some changes on that. You're muted, City Manager.
So I only caught part of the question, sorry. So it was about the availability of office space and staffing. Is that what the question was about?
Yeah, I was just trying to just make sure that we're realistic about that option and how this is worded. I know with our work, we meet and, we have a designated time and a space to do that. And I just wanted you to, if you could, speak to the reality of kind of what you envision.
So this section causes me concerns in a couple of ways. The first is that I'm not sure what it means by office separate from police department and City Hall, because all administrative offices are basically at City Hall. So I guess, do they mean physically located somewhere else if we rent an office elsewhere? So I don't know exactly what that means. And then also about an employee not a part of the police department. So all of the staff that staff commissions work as a part of those departments, and the reason is pretty practical, that they're the people who know the most about where to get the information, the connections, the department, all that needs to be done, just like the planning commission staff is staffed by planning staff, transportation is staffed by engineering, and so on and so forth. So I don't know exactly how that would work, because right now you see the way it's functioning. The chief is the primary, I think, would be the primary contact for this group, because the chief would want to be in close communication, answerable to, discussing with the group on a regular basis. So I think that connection gets the work done that you need done. And then the police department has resources. So I'm not exactly clear how this would work. I understand the desire to have something separate so that people see it as standing apart from it. But the reality of getting the work done is that the chief asks his sort of bench of people, and then that work gets done. If it's research that Chris asked for, if it's administrative work, then Diane does it. So I'm not exactly clear on that, exactly what the group is looking for.
Thank you, and that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So then we can really talk about that. I saw Commissioner Williams' hand go up, and then Commissioner Harrell, and then Vice Chair Root. Please go ahead.
I believe in, and don't ask me to name names, but I think there's some cities that made a point of having the office separate from the building in which the police department is located, so that when people wanted to complain or gripe about the police, they wouldn't have to go to the police department and see police officers coming and going and so forth.
So that's one of the things.
Maybe Hannah might have a little office someplace that the people could set up.
That was a good point, actually. The city of Kalamazoo actually had this office as a part of the city manager's office. I understand. I think there's a distinction between where you file a complaint and where you can drop a complaint off, and administrative staff that supports the commission. Because I didn't know if this group wanted to have, typically it's someone of an administrative level who would do technical clerical support. And would that be the same person? I would envision it would probably not be the same person who would be someone who would be writing complaints down or taking complaints necessarily. But so I don't know if that's a fit. The person who's doing the administrative minutes, the person who's doing the postings, the person who's doing that type of work, sending out agendas, making sure everything is posted before the meeting. I don't know if that person would typically be a more senior staff person who would be involved in the complaint process. So I think those two can be separate anyway. Like dropping off complaints at the city clerk's office gets to your concern, or dropping them off anywhere. Drop them anywhere. But I don't know if that necessarily means the staff people who support it would have to be physically separate.
I mean, suppose you're a member of the public and you wanted to talk to somebody about the police. You have a concern about the police. Where would you go if you're naive about how the city is organized?
Hopefully me.
Where would you want to talk to somebody?
I mean, I'd hope they come to me or to my office, perhaps. That's, I think, why I came to the city manager's office, and Kalamazoo had it as a part of the city manager's office. I mean, what you're getting at is almost like, an ombuds person, right? But,
might have that kind of function, yeah.
So, I don't know if we would have somebody who would have the level of workload. The other thing about using existing administrative staff in a department is that those people are all working right now. Then they stop what they're doing and they turn over and they become the staff person for the commission. And then when the commission's work is done for that day, they turn back and they go to another task. You know what I mean? So it's very efficient in that regard. Whereas if we have people dedicated to this and hire staff, we have no idea what the workload will be and what that person will be doing during the day. You know what I mean?
Right. Now with human relations, we have the director of
HR,
human resources, doing the staff, who's kind of a neutral person. Do you think that they might serve that function?
They might say that they are overburdened and not able to serve that function, but I don't know that. I mean, I have to talk to them first. It would be an additional responsibility, obviously, in addition to human relations. One of the thoughts is, I do tend to think, and I could be wrong about this, because I haven't seen this operate firsthand. I've read the news, and I've talked to people about it, and I've read the ordinances that set them up and the complaint procedures and that stuff, but I haven't seen actual meetings of these. Is that I think the chief would be a pretty key person in terms of interaction and data and everything that they want to hear about. And I just picture that the chief is the person who will be the person that this committee will be talking to and working with the most. And then the chief, of course, like we said, has a deep bench with which to get stuff done. And that's what you see in the running of this commission. A first-hand look is how this commission is run. Diane works for the chief. And then Diane does the minutes and does all of the documentation and all of that. And then the chief also can answer questions, because the chief can go to one of his captains and say, go research this, and then they go research it and do presentations, and they do presentations. So it's that connection actually makes stuff happen pretty easily from my perspective. But I understand the whys of where complaints and that stuff wants to look more independent, so I get that. I just haven't thought through how that would work efficiently at this point, considering the size of our operation.
You know, I can see how people on the commission would like the opportunity to relate through the police chief, but I'm just, you know, I would imagine somebody like Gacito, and you know, he has a complaint, and he wants to talk over something. Sending him to the police chief might
yeah, no, I get that. I get it.
Might deter him from engaging. You know.
No, I understand that about the complaint process. That's why I kind of think it's a little different about who is your staff support and supports the commission versus who is where and how do you file complaints. But maybe that's not, maybe I'm reading too much into that distinction.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams and City Manager. Please go ahead, Commissioner Harrell and Vice Chair Root, and then I believe I saw Commissioner Boyle wanted to weigh in as well.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Vice Chair Root?
Yeah. To me, this isn't an issue about complaints. You know, we've discussed complaints a lot already, and I think that's separate. From my reading about NAPOL material, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, the independence from the police department is seen as an extremely high priority. I've got on my screen at the moment, what is meaningful civilian oversight? And it says independent must be independent authorities, not subsidiaries of the police department they oversee. And the second half of that document is called Pitfalls to Avoid. And it says oversight is not chosen or housed by police departments. Appointees should not be chosen by the police chief. Oversight bodies should be independent of the police department in all ways. One other point, a lot of national folks also say you will fail as an oversight commission if you do not have a good relationship with the police department. There has to be a good working relationship between the oversight commission and the police department. It's a question of what is the nature of that relationship. And for example, in Ann Arbor, the staff for the Oversight Commission is also the staff for the Human Rights Commission. And so she's the person who does the, arranging of meetings and minutes and things like that. The police chief frequently attends the meetings because of a need for communication between the police chief and the commission. But the question is one of independence. And that's where the staffing and housing comes in. I don't know how to deal with the particular efficiencies of the individual people we have working for the city. I don't have an answer about that.
Yeah. So what I was saying, Chris, you raised a good point. The appointment comes from council. The positions will be not in any way subservient to or under or within the police department, because this is an independent board. So just as like this board has all the freedom to raise issues, concerns, thoughts, discussions, candid discussions, and the chief, myself, Diane, Elaine, Shelley are all here to assist you, but no one is running this process except you guys. We're here to help you guys and provide information and support, but you guys run the process. And anyone who's watched the meetings, I think, would say the process works that way. You guys are independent. You guys are saying what you need to do, and we're the ones who are making sure you've got the stuff lined up for you that day so you can do your job. But that's what I mean. I won't beat a dead horse. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was saying about it. But certainly to put this group in the city manager's office attached to human relations or human resources. That's all possible and doable. It's just, I would be concerned about going out and hiring staff people or even a full-time staff person when we just don't know. I mean, that's a $70,000 proposition for a mid-level staff person. If you figure $45,000 in staffing salary, which is a basic administrative, and we call them administrative assistants, so $45,000 to $50,000 salary plus benefits puts you easily up to $70,000. So we would be looking at $70,000 or $75,000 just to have a body that would be the person who would do minutes, do postings, do all the follow-up from the meeting. But that might only be 20 hours or 15 hours a month. You know what I mean? That's the thing we just don't know at this point. But 15 hours a month isn't a full-time job.
I don't think anybody has suggested that it would be full-time. As I say, I don't, from a practical point of view, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But I think NACOL is extremely highly regarded in this field. And if we say that it should be housed and staffed by the police, we are really doing something that they advise against. And I'm communicating that.
Like I said, I'm good with it coming from another area. I'm trying to figure out how this is done efficiently and trying to figure out a way to recommend it to you guys. And I just don't have a firm answer just because I don't know how much work it's going to be, and none of us do at this point, right? And I'm just trying to judge it by other commission meetings. I was a staff person to human relations for a decade before, so I have some experience. As Eric and Ron know, they were both commission members back when I was a staff person a decade ago. So I have some experience in that, and it's just hard to judge what the workload is going to be here. And then because of that, I don't want to, overbuild the process, I guess you'd say. But I understand the need for independence, and sitting it somewhere else into another department is certainly doable.
Thank you. I believe Commissioner Boyle was up, but I don't. Are you there, Commissioner Boyle?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead. And then Councilmember Bacon, you're up next.
All right. Just a couple of things. One is Commissioner Williams talked about if somebody wants to come in and talk to someone about a problem they are having with the police. I think that doesn't really fall within the imprint of the commission at that stage. If they want to file a complaint, we're trying to have lots of places they can file the complaint, which would then get to the commission, and the commission could work on it. And I think we've come up with a pretty wide variety of places where they can do that to make it easy for people. But if somebody really wants to sit down and talk about concerns or problems, I don't think that starts at the commission. That's going to start with either the police department or the city manager. I mean, that's, if you're going to go talk about a problem you're having with city government, that's where you go. You don't go to a commission unless you go and speak during public comment during a commission meeting. I'm sure somebody could do that. But I'm not sure that the commission structure would allow for informal discussion of concerns and complaints on an on-demand basis, which is what I heard us talking about. As far as being separate from the police department, now I guess I have a question on what is meant by separate, because our police department is in City Hall. I mean, it's a separate spot of City Hall, but it's in City Hall, which are where the vast majority of the type of offices that would work with this commission are located. I can't see putting the commission out of Public Works. The only other place that comes readily to my mind is the Hannah Center, but I don't think there's administrative staff at the Hannah Center that could support the administrative needs of the commission And I just don't think, at least at this stage, at the beginning stage, we need full-time administrative support. So I guess I wonder what people feel about, is it okay to have it at City Hall as long as it's clearly not a part of the police department?
I think Commissioner Boyle, did anyone want to respond to that? Because I'm struggling with separate too, and I'll go ahead and shut up and let Councilmember Bacon go ahead and weigh in, since he's been patiently waiting to speak. You're muted, Councilmember.
I think you guys have to remember, for my assessment, when we're here, we're solving for a problem. This is just an exercise in an exercise. So you got to think worst case scenario. What will an actual person who's having an issue do? I'm trying to walk in this individual's shoes. I'm not walking to the police station, so I don't know how practical, and I respect where George is coming from, but we'll deal with the particulars later. I want us to actually think about the path of an individual who's going through an issue, because part of this is corrective action for the community that the community's asked for, the council's asked for. So I feel like we're getting down to the brass tacks and we're backing down. I'd rather you push hard and we have to back down on how we build this than backing down now. It's easier to do that in other ways, but just how would an individual actually get through this process? How do you guys visualize it looking? And would someone realistically do this, use this, or whatever else, or is it more of the same? And we're trying to reestablish trust. We're trying to counteract these numbers and the surveys and everything that's coming out. Some of this is going to be aggressive, and it's going to be maybe not feel to scale or something like that, but there's an actual problem with stuff. This isn't a neutral, made-up thing. So that's the thing we got to consider at every step here. And if you're going to be a little aggressive, and like I've said for the zillionth time, just err the other way, and we'll decide if it's not practical budgetarily. And you, George, myself, anyone, no one talks you out of any of this stuff. This is the time. Be aggressive. Go for the thing you think you should go for. It doesn't necessarily have to be practical at this point. Just that you think that's the linchpin or what's going to make it work together, make it fit together. And just be confident you have my unfettered support, and we'll deal with some of this on the back end. Just go for it.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Commissioner Harrell, please go ahead.
I'm curious about why we're running into this stumbling block of this is not going to be a full-time position. I mean, I think that's pretty clear, but that doesn't mean that there's something that precludes us from hiring somebody to work part-time, 10 hours a week, and have that person staffed at the Hannah Center for whatever hours they're working, right? Like, this isn't a $70,000 problem. This could be a $30,000 solution, depending on what we want that to look like, right? There's nothing that would prevent us from hiring somebody at part-time to do this sort of thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowe. Please go ahead, Vice Chair Root.
I appreciate Ron's comments and also Cedric's. I think if you look at the recommendations we're reviewing, the role of the Oversight Commission is a lot more than reviewing complaints. So, yes, we're trying to solve problems that individuals bring to us, whether they go through the complaint process or not, but we're laying out a more a much larger agenda of looking at some policy issues to make recommendations, doing work with data so that the community is able to learn more about what the police are doing. There are a lot of things in the recommendations, and the staff would be supporting those things as well as an individual coming in. Well, actually not, the individuals make complaints to the police department. So it's not really about the complaints. It's about all these responsibilities that we are putting into the recommendations about the role of the Oversight Commission. And George said, well, look at how the study committee is operating, it can be kind of like that, that you all are kind of carrying the ball. I think we've been carrying the ball this much, partly because it's been a 6-month obligation. And I think there will be more staffing needed for an ongoing oversight commission to make a difference in the community. I'll leave it at that. If you look at what we're trying to have the oversight commission accomplish, the staff would be supporting the people on the commission to do that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And so for me, like I think we're talking about 7 and 8 at the same time, if I'm not mistaken with it. And so we're kind of getting away from really the point of 7, I think, a little bit, and we can still talk about some more of the staffing and part-time, full-time, but I think I want to go back just real quickly on maybe the definition of separate, because as Commissioner Haro, I think, stated, or maybe it was Commissioner Williams, going into and making a complaint, and I think Commissioner Boyle kind of addressed it with, it doesn't really start there in the process, and then we had some talk about possibly that person being able to have an opportunity to do that in the city manager's office part of what's going on. So when we talk about separate and we talk about item number 7 and your concerns, Vice Chair Root, about really having something that's independent, can we just touch that real quickly, and so I can get a consensus or understanding after our discussion of kind of where we're at with the actual part of separation? Equipment separate, police department separate from City Hall. I know Councilmember Bacon talked about go for the moon and all that, but I also want to make sure that I want to go for realistic and go for practical and go for something that is going to be, I would say, highly has a percentage of it being something that we're doing this work for that's going to be complimentary of their decisions. Please, Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
I would just want to take us back a step to the general design of this. We had not gone the way of having a monitor system of oversight. The monitor would be a lawyer or somebody that has a $150,000 a year salary and benefits on top of that. Would be having a separate office, having an office inside the police department with access to all the records and meetings in the police department, and that would be a job for somebody in a big city, which East Lansing just doesn't have the resources to accommodate or the business to accommodate. So this whole thing that we're talking about is a step back from the monitor system. So how far do you want to step back? And I think if we wanted to separate this issue in 7 and 8, one way to separate it would be to ask, well, can you be administratively separate from the police department? And I think that would be pretty easily arranged. The other would be, do you want to be in a different building than the police department? Do you want to have it at City Hall, or do you want to have it at, I can't think of any place else, but Hannah, or maybe the student activities building at MSU, or some place separate where you wouldn't encounter police officers when you were going about your business with the commission. But I think it's possible to have things, equipment administrative set up separate from the police department, but still be in City Hall. So those are two issues that probably could be discussed separately. But what we're doing here is a cheap version of a monitor. We've decided not to have a monitor. We gotta have something.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rowe, please go ahead.
Yes. So I think what's important to consider here is that these are sort of separate concerns about the process of filing a complaint versus the process of the day-to-day functioning of the commission, right? In terms of administratively, the commission says, I need something to do my job better in terms of a particular complaint or whatever. I don't think it's at all problematic to have that office be in City Hall, still outside of the police department, but in City Hall itself, so that there is better communication and better access to the police department, right? The key is to, and this goes back to a conversation we had about where you can file a complaint. Right? The key is that there needs to be enough places available for someone to file a complaint that if I wanted to, I would not have to walk into City Hall to go to that commission office knowing that I'm going to be in the same building as a police officer that I'm filing a complaint against, right? So those are two separate processes. And I don't think we eventually sort of decided on, and correct me if I'm wrong, the police department, the DEI administrator, and the police commission as places to file a complaint, right? And so if that's going to be the case, that seems a little restrictive, right? Because those are all within that City Hall complex where I might feel reluctant to walk into any of those offices to file a complaint. Because, again, I might have to walk past the officer I'm filing the complaint against as I'm walking into the building, right? So I think if we're going to have the administrative offices of the commission in City Hall, we need to have at least one place outside of City Hall where people can file those complaints.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowe, and I appreciate that. And so, did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Ells? Was that you said?
Yeah, I just, I'm not a fan of having it within City Hall. I'd rather have it at the Hannah Center. From an administrative point of view, I mean, I'm working from home and have been for a year. And so, I mean, there's systems in place where people don't have to be like right there close to the police to get access to records or what have you. So I'm not a fan of having it there in City Hall. I think it should be separate from where the officers are.
And you're talking into specifically holding the meetings and conducting business as an oversight.
Right, or someone making a complaint.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did anyone else want to weigh into the discussion about what separate is in regards to what they think is separate enough from the actual building of the police department at City Hall to the Hannah Center to anything else when it comes to conducting the business with the actual commission doing their work? So I guess my question, because I don't know, because I've heard a couple different things. For when we think about item 7, are we in consensus that possibly the Hannah Center or a space within the opposite side of the police department is something that we can kind of think about as those two viable ways of conducting that kind of business for the oversight as far as a recommendation? Does anyone disagree with that? Yes, Commissioner Rowe.
A moment for a vote regarding physical separation of the administrative officers of the police commission. Whether we want to be physically separate from City Hall.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowe. Did you want to speak to that, Vice Chair?
I'm wondering if have a vote on the administrative staff separation question? Are we regarding these as two separate issues?
Yes.
I think they are.
Yes. So we're just doing the physical meeting body part, not the staffing and part-time, full-time, who is, who isn't. If I understand, Commissioner Heroes
The
suggested.
physical separation is about where a staff person would be housed. Is that correct? Is that the physical separation we're talking about? We're not talking about where you make a complaint or where the meetings are held.
Correct. Where the staff member and the physical offices of the commission will be located.
Right.
Yes, Commissioner Ellsworth Hutchinson.
For me, it's all three. It's the staff or the commission will be held, and where community can go in person if they want to make a complaint in person.
I feel quite confident that we can find a place outside of City Hall where people can leave a complaint. I think that's easier to solve than the issue of where a staff person would be. I guess we haven't solved it yet, but I think I don't know if taking it to the library might be a possibility, since they're full-time responsible staff at the library who could be responsible for making sure the complaint got to the police. That is indeed a separate building.
Thank you. So let's go back to Commissioner Rose, and let's open that up for the staff part, so we can kind of get moving on this. And so, Commissioner Rose, did you want to entertain a motion in regards to that? And so then we can maybe, get that going and maybe discuss that in detail for the one part of the three that we had going on.
I would. So motion for a vote on physical separation of the administrative offices of the Oversight Commission.
Is there a second on the motion on the floor from Commissioner Harrell?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ellsworth Edginson. And that leaves us open to discussion. Did anyone want to talk about the particulars of that for the motion specifically by Commissioner Harrell? Okay. All those in favor of the motion of staff being separate from the City Hall and Police Department staffing, please say aye.
We're talking about the physical location of an office, I think, not the staffing.
Commissioner Rowe, can you please restate the motion so I don't mess it up?
Correct. I think those things need to be addressed separately. So, current motion is regarding the physical location of the offices, not where the staff member is coming from, but where they'll physically be sitting.
Physically, okay, for the staff members. Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So in our recommendation, and I think hopefully, did you get that?
What about the people that cannot be seen?
I'm not, just a quick second, Commissioner Williams, did you get that, Diane, as far as that vote for the motion, particularly to Commissioner Harrell's motion?
Yeah, Harrell was the motion and Hutchinson was the second, and then it was approved.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead. Commissioner Harrell, or excuse me, Commissioner Williams.
Did everybody vote?
Correct.
Eric has said that there's some people we can't see, and we didn't have an oral vote, so we don't know how they voted.
They came off. They came off the mic, so I assume that they did not oppose it. Did anyone, to our particular vote, get not a chance to weigh in on that particular motion? Okay, so I think we're good there, Vice Chair. Thank you. And then let's go ahead and please take a moment to recognize Commissioner Reed Davis, who is here for her attendance for the official record, if we don't mind, real quickly, please. Commissioner Reed Davis, you there?
muted.
If you're talking, you're muted. We can't hear you. All right, I'll just check back with her in a quick second or two. We'll keep it going. So we're going to move on to item 8, if that's all right. We kind of talked about that a little bit of our 3 that we really wanted to knock out. Employee, the city shall assign employee not of the police department to clerical, administrative, research work at the direction of the commission. Comments, more discussion? Yes, Commissioner Rowe, and then Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
I have to agree with Vice Chair Reed in light of the fact that the staff and the commission itself will be not just responding to complaints, but doing policy review and things and collecting and analyzing data. I think it's reasonable, especially given time constraints on other staff, to entertain the idea of hiring somebody to at the very least do the job part-time. It doesn't necessarily require a significant financial investment on the part of the city. The job deserves somebody who is dedicated to doing that and only that.
Any other comments? Thank you, Commissioner Rowe. I think Commissioner Boyle was up next.
Yes, thank you. It doesn't really talk about hiring or not hiring here. I'm wondering if what we could say is that the city shall assign an employee who is not a part of the police department, because I think that's important, pretty important, considering what Vice Chair Root has said, and understanding that if we're getting information from the police department, that employee is probably going to be contacting the police department to get information. But it's still necessary to have that separation for the people who will be contacting the commission, I think. So anyway, assign an employee who is not a part of the police department to do, let's say, necessary clerical, administrative, and research work at the direction of the commission. And then, if that's approved, the decision of how much work that's going to need and whether it's going to be a full-time or part-time, or whether somebody could be hired at the city to do this part-time and something else part-time at the city, all of those things don't have to be a part of this recommendation to council. But we've given the framework that will have what's necessary for the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. And I honestly can't disagree with that. Any other comments in regards to really shaping that? So have an employee that's not an employee of the police department, possibly in the framework of a part-timer who may have dual roles. As Commissioner Boyle is stating, we don't really have to have that necessarily detailed out. We can just kind of have that as far as the framework of what we would like. But I would, if there's any more discussion, I'd like to hear it in regards to those comments or number 8. Does anyone disagree with Commissioner Boyle's last statement in regards to kind of really just setting it up and not really worrying about the classification of the employee, but just making sure that that person is separate and leaving it at that? If I do your comment justice, Commissioner Boyle, when I say that. Okay, then so I don't see anyone who has anything to oppose that or challenge that or change that. So we'll ride with that from my understanding to how we'll leave number 8 and move on. That work with everyone? I gotta tell you, this is extremely difficult, and so thank you for your patience when it comes to this work that we're doing tonight. Some of these are just going to be what it is, and we'll just have to kind of go over it a few times to get to where we want to be. But so thank you. So I'll go ahead and move on to item number 9, panel of investigators. The city shall prepare a list of professional investigators qualified to conduct investigations in police misconduct cases and available on short notice to conduct investigations for the commission. And then there's a comment below from Albany, New York. Has a volunteer board with the capacity to hire a professional investigator on a case-by-case basis, and all be ordinance in the panel eligible investigators is organized by the local law school. The recommendation requires the city to organize the panel, and so forth and so on with sub-site there. So I'll open it up to the commissioners for a panel of investigators. Reaction, comments, or recommendations. So our commissioners are comfortable with the language there and the structure of the panel of investigators? Yes, Commissioner Williams.
Can I make a comment that's not in these comments? But I was wondering if it might be at all possible for somebody to approach the law school here at East Lansing to see if they might be interested in serving, playing any kind of a role here, like the law school in Albany is playing there. I couldn't do it, but maybe the committee as a whole or somebody on the city council might, if he thought it was a good idea, might raise that issue with the MSU Law School for the future, not for this.
I think I remember talking to you a little bit about that in the resources over there to take advantage of. So, but yeah, any other comments regards to item number 9 with the language in the recommendation? Yes, Vice Chair Root.
Eric, were you suggesting that maybe once the Oversight Commission exists, that there could be that discussion? Is that the timing you were suggesting? I wasn't sure about at what juncture you were raising that idea.
I was just throwing out the idea. I hadn't thought about timing or anything like that.
It is an intriguing idea.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move on to item 10 if there's no more discussion on 9. All right, so education of commission members. The commission may facilitate education and training opportunities to its members. Education and training opportunities. Pretty straightforward. All right, I'll go ahead and move on that. To item number 11. Education, training, and study. Members of the commission may join state or national organizations whose scope is similar to the commission's scope, pay dues and fees, and attend events and educational opportunities sponsored by those organizations. Are we good on 11? Any amendments or changes? Yes, Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
I just make sure that I understand that by doing this, we're saying the city is going to pay for these things.
That's in item 17.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's later on.
17A.
So it is. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for item 11? All right, we'll move on to 12. Contact with the police department. The commission may facilitate training and other activities for commission members in cooperation with the police department. The police department shall allow members of the commission to participate in suitable training and activities. Any amendments or changes to that? 12. We'll move on to item 13. Budget for training, education, and study. The city will provide commission with the budget sufficient to cover the cost of education training. I'll move to item 14. Yes, Commissioner Boyle.
Well, actually, maybe that's already covered in 17 now that 17 has been pointed out.
Yeah, it's redundant, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's covered in 17, which is good. That's nice, if it's all in a list there.
So you're saying that we just take 13 out because it's redundant? Yes, Commissioner Rowe, go ahead.
Yes, I think we can combine 10 and 11 and since it's covered in 17.
So you're jumping back to combining education of commissions, members, and education, training, and study as one.
Correct.
Okay. Everyone good with that recommendation? All right. And then what was the second part of what you said, Commissioner Rowe?
And just eliminate 13.
Okay.
It's 17.
Okay. Anyone disagree with that or have concerns on that striking of 13?
We can't hear you, Chuck.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Is anyone against 13, striking 13? We good with that? Okay. I'll move on to 14, and hopefully everyone can hear me clearly now. Contact with local organizations. Members of the commission may seek out and participate in events and educational opportunities sponsored by local organizations and groups concerned with improvement of the criminal justice system. Any amendments or changes to item number 14? Contact with local organizations. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to 15. Free speech. The city recognizes the right of the commission and its members to speak freely on matters within the commission's scope, except for disclosures of protected secret information. The city will not retaliate against the commission or a commission member for exercising that right. Very important, number 15. Any reactions or comments to that? Yes, Commissioner Boyle.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can substitute confidential for secret. Protected confidential information, since confidential is the term that usually appears in statutes, and this recommendation references confidentiality established by statute. So
This is a mistake. It should say confidential. It comes from a much earlier draft.
oh, well, goody.
I had secret in other places.
All right, very good. Anyone does not like the word confidential? That suggested that amendment to that. Anything else for item number 15? Okay, number 16, disclosure of confidential information. A member shall disclose confidential information covered by a promise to protect confidential information made by the commission or panel of the commission. A. So B, the city council may remove a member or who breaches a promise to protect confidential information. All right. We'll move on to item number 17. And this is why I had Vice Chair Root go earlier to help me out, because I knew that this would. So we're at item 17 on budget. The City Council shall provide sufficient financial support for A, the commission member education and training, B, office staff, space, equipment, and operations, C, commission investigations, D, mistreatment, complaints, investigations by professional investigators retained by the commission, E, legal representation and work in FOIA cases, F, mediation, and G, data analysis, H, expenses of the police department in responding to the commission's information requests, I, quadrennial evaluations. Comment items D and E, investigations by professional investigators are likely to be episodic. The need for legal representation in FOIA cases is likely to be rare. Reactions. And I apologize if I may miss the enunciation of some of those words there. Any reactions, comments to? Yes, Commissioner Boyle, go ahead.
I'm sort of flabbergasted by legal representation of work in FOIA cases. I'm assuming the only time that would ever happen would be if the commission was to serve a FOIA request on another governmental body, and then there was a dispute about the governmental body failing to release the information to the commission. And I guess, to me, if that were to happen, the way you would deal with that would be to go to the city attorney and say, or to the city manager and say, we need this information. the city of Mason won't give it to us. We think we're entitled to it under FOIA, and we want the city attorney to represent us. I can't see that you would need to go hire an outside attorney when the city has somebody on contract to do a FOIA case. And I'm assuming we're not thinking that we're going to have to defend a FOIA case where somebody serves us with a FOIA and we don't let the information go, because I think that would clearly be covered by the city attorney. So I think E is unnecessary.
Yes, Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
In other words, you don't think that, I guess I agree with you. You don't think that we would need to write that into an ordinance, that the commission could ask the city to represent it in an FOIA case? You think that's not necessary to say?
No, I think we could always ask the city to represent us. That doesn't guarantee that they will, but I think we could always ask that.
And do you think that it would be possible to make that request binding by putting it in an ordinance?
Well, no, I used to, before I retired, I did FOIA cases, so if you win, you can get your cost and attorney's fees if you win. So, and I'm not sure that.
I would tend to agree with Kathy that I think that legal representation is provided to all city boards and commissions through the city attorney's office. They're supposed to, by charter, be the legal representation for the city. So I do think it's redundant or unnecessary. But
is there any more? Go ahead, Commissioner Boyle.
I agree with you. Take it out.
Yes, Commissioner Ellsworth Edgington.
So is there something somewhere to that fact that city manager stated? Is it listed somewhere to that fact that the legal representation is for all commissions?
Charter, hold on a second. The city charter will take me a minute. So if you want to move on to another topic, see if I can find something.
Is there any other discussion surrounding the budget for item 17? Or any other issues there, as opposed to just the striking of E? All right. Yes, Vice Chair Rule, please go ahead.
Maybe have somewhere a duty to represent the commission if the commission decides to file a FOIA, pursue FOIA litigation. I guess that's what's Kelly's question.
I want to just make sure before we strike it that, if it's covered somewhere, like in the charter, and, we're good with striking it. But if it's not covered, then we should have something in there that allows for this to be paid for, if we need it.
Vice Chair Rue, please go ahead.
I'm assuming that this section 17 about the budget that the council would understand that this means that this would be part of their budget process annually. That there would be a portion of the budget for these sorts of needs that would be considered there, because that's the usual budget process. I don't think we need to say that, but I'm just sort of trying to understand if that's what we're anticipating.
But you could consider that it's part of the commission's operations, which in another part of this section, the city is required to fund, expected to fund. But,
Well, we can.
Well, as you know,
we can leave it as it is.
Yes, Commissioner Ellsworth Edgington, go ahead.
Yeah, you'd rather have something in there and not need it than to need it and not have it in there. Of course, if something has to go to, be litigated, You know, if you don't have something in writing, you just don't have it in writing, so you're out of luck there.
City Manager Lahanis, are we at a good place for you to do that, or are you still kind of researching that?
I have the page on the charter. It's a full page about the city attorney responsibilities. The city attorney shall act as the legal advisor to and the attorney of and counsel for the city and the council and all its members in matters relating to their official duties. Offer written opinions in the official or department of the city when requested in writing by the council or the city manager, and shall file a copy of formal opinions within the city clerk. I have to understand it's pretty broad enough when it says any official, if that means boards or commissions, which I think it does. But I always understood the city council that boards and commissions were entitled to legal protection, defense of the city. They're operating under the city's auspices, and they have the right to utilize the city attorney. I mean, I say that within reason. If the group wanted to initiate lawsuits in different areas, that might be something council might have to agree to. But my understanding is that our city attorney represents our boards and commissions and board members, and and provides legal support to all of them.
Thank you, City Manager. Does that address your concern, Commissioner Ellsworth Edgerton, to Commissioner Boyle's point of striking E? You're muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think what I heard was that it is definitely covered. Did I miss that? I thought it was kind of some kind of like vague statement.
Yeah, it doesn't say that commissions can initiate lawsuits. It doesn't say that. And I don't necessarily believe that could be the case without council's essence, but I don't think putting it in an ordinance is going to make a difference in that respect. I think that I don't know if an entity, a commission, can initiate a lawsuit against somebody, but I think it has to be the city as a whole, and that means the council. But, I forget. Maybe you want to put down what we think this should be, and then we can get an opinion from our city attorney on what it would look like.
That's a great suggestion. Does anyone have any issues with that? And we can note that and hit that once we get that back. We'll have quite a few of those anyway, but just to make sure we're good with that. All right, so is there any other on 17? All right, so I'll move to 18, financial resources to support commission recommendation. If the commission makes a recommendation to the police department which has financial implications and the department chooses to accept the recommendation, then the city council will provide the department with financial resources necessary to carry out the recommendation. Reactions, amendments, changes? Yes, City Manager Lahanis, go ahead.
I'm not sure if that's doable under our charter because the city council is the sole holder of the purse strings. Any dollars that we spend have to be appropriated by them, so that's changing it around and saying this commission can appropriate dollars. So I can make a request or make a recommendation to the council for funding, but I don't know how they can give away their ability to fund something to another group because that's their sole responsibility is to appropriate dollars. So I just don't know how that would work.
So based on our charter, we can make yes, Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
So how would 17 work and 18 not work?
Go back up to 17. We have the same problem with 17.
That's what I was raising when we were talking about 17. Doesn't it assume that the council's budgetary process is going to happen?
It should all be a recommendation. I sort of thought that's what Chris was saying, but it should all be a recommendation.
Because that's a legal responsibility of the council.
I make a recommendation on the budget to council, and council is the one that approves the budget. They're the only ones with authority to spend $1. Any amount of money, council has to be able to spend it through their appropriation.
So according to the budget process, then the department or a commission or a board would make an estimate of the money it needs for the fiscal year, submit that to you, you put the budget together. together and you take that to city council.
This doesn't happen anywhere else, so I don't know, but I would guess something like that would be the way to work. A recommendation from this group.
So that's the way it would have to be phrased in order to fit in with the fiscal way of doing business.
Yeah, because there aren't any commissions that operate this way, so it's kind of new territory.
So if we said that for 17 and 18, then that would work.
Yes.
All right.
It would work better. I believe so. Yes, did you make a recommendation?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're good with that as far as making the recommendation for 17 and 18 in that language. All right. All right. I'll go ahead and move on to 19 to evaluations. Every 4 years, the city council shall contract with a qualified agency with experience in evaluating police oversight boards to evaluate the commission and its work. And the comment below there, this is based off Albuquerque's code, section 9-4-111. And then the site is noted there. Any reactions or changes to that language? I see Commissioner Boyle smiling, I think, but I'm not quite sure if you wanted to say anything.
My question is, are there such things that are qualified and with experience in evaluating police oversight boards? Are there such entities?
ANCO has people that do that. That's their business.
Okay. All right.
Make money at it,
Doesn't mean they do a good job, of course, but.
Oh, no.
Vice Chair Rue, please go ahead.
This is a wonderful idea because an oversight commission is, it's a new body in East Lansing, and it will be trying to work out how to do things the best way they can. But I think knowing that there's going to be, somebody looking at it from the outside will be very good. And it's done in Albany too. It's not just one other place that we know of. It's done in a couple of places. And some of those reports are fascinating and I think probably very helpful.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll go ahead and move on. Item 20 and 21's been reserved. And then I'll take a quick moment to see if we can acknowledge Commissioner Reed Davis here for attendance. Commissioner Reed Davis, are you there? If you are talking, you are muted. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to commission duties. We're on number 22, page 18, if you're looking at that. And we'll get started with that section here. 22 is requests for the commission to act. A, the commission may conduct an investigation within the scope of the commission on its own initiative or in response to a request from a member of the public. B, the commission may make recommendations, file misconduct complaints, or take other actions based on its investigation. And then there's a lengthy comment under there for item A, the recommendation and those that follow in this section allow the commission to engage in a range of activities outside the employee disciplinary sphere. There are two reasons for this approach. First, individual police officers are part of the system, and some of the misconduct we attribute to the individual officers may really be caused by the system. Second, people upset with police misconduct often campaign to get individual officers fired, and they are almost always frustrated since the police officers have strong employment rights. Rather than try to weaken the employment rights of the police officers, it may be more effective to give the commission several tools to pursue police accountability outside the employee disciplinary sphere. And that's item 22. Any reactions, changes, or amendments to 22? Going once? All right, I'll go ahead and move on. And I'll just say out loud that I have a new appreciation of, the consent agenda that City Manager Lahanis reels through to the public meetings when he's doing his stuff there. So just wanted to say that for the record. All right, we'll move to item 23, petition. If 20 residents of the city sign a petition on an issue of concern within the scope of the commission shall hold a special hearing for those purpose of inquiring into the petitioner's concern. And then there's a comment there, and this is based off the Berkeley Ordinance 4644, Section 8. The website there is mentioned. And then it says, which allows 50 residents to compel a commission hearing. The required number of petition signers in East Lansing is reduced from 50 to 20 on account of East Lansing's smaller population. Any reactions to 23? Comments or recommendations? All right, I'll keep it moving to item 24, work priorities. The commission may prioritize its work, and that's it. And there's a comment below there. The members of the commission are volunteers and may need to focus their limited time and energies on the tasks that they are deemed most effective. We're good with that, commissioners? All right. One of my favorite, annual report 25. Annually, the commission shall produce a report including 1, a summary of its work for the previous year, 2, its work priorities for the coming year, 3, summaries of use of force incidences, 4, summaries of contempt of cop incidences, 5, summaries of mistreatment complaints and the police department's financial decisions, 6, summaries of incidents where a police officer transports or arrests a person who is homeless. 7, summaries of the incident where a police officer transports or arrests a person who is apparently mentally ill. 8, summaries of its recommendations. 9, analysis of data the commission has compiled. And then B, summaries published in the report shall describe behavior but not include the names of individuals. And then there's a comment there, item A, examples of case summaries are available in the Kansas Integrity Bulletin, and the website is noted there. And item B, naming in this public document should be avoided because it can be prejudicial, damage reputations, and lead to unintended adverse consequences. Prejudicial, damage reputations and lead to unintended adverse consequences. And that's item 25. Yes, Vice Chair Root.
I have two thoughts. One is simple and one is a little more complicated. The simple one is, I would suggest that it's saying the commission shall produce one or more report rather than a report, because I think it could be extremely difficult to have all of this ready at exactly the same time. There's an enormous amount of content here, some of which are reports of things that have happened in the past year, some of which are plans for the next year, some data reports or recommendations you might not want to hold, for 6 months or something. So I think it would be a real burden to have to try to put all of this into a single report at one time. So it could just say one or more report.
Anyone disagree with that suggestion, the recommendation, in the language? Yes, Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's a good idea. I had a comment on sub item 4, but I don't know if you're ready for that or not.
No, we are. Please go ahead, because I think we're all in agreement to Vice Chair Root's suggestion, so we're good with that.
All right, yeah, summaries of contempt of cop incidents, and I think we want to be a little more definite about what we want included there. Are we talking about incidents where specific charges were made against somebody, like resisting and obstructing or assaulting a police officer? Are we talking about more than that? Are we going to try and get disorderly complaints and what ordinances or statutes are we targeting with the summaries of these incidents?
Did you want to respond, Commissioner Williams, to that question?
Yeah, well, I probably shouldn't have used contempt of cop as the label. It's explicated in item 28. The more polite word would be charges of disrespect or resistance to police authority, and then it describes, you know, the particular, more particularly categories of offenses. So, you know, we're talking about disrespect, resistance to police authorities, similar offenses under the city code. And, you know, and those would include resisting and obstructing, and I haven't gone through everything in the city code that would fit in that category, but those are the kinds of things. There is a few sessions back, the Ingham County prosecutor showed up at one of our meetings, and she has a policy that she just recently published that has to do with small charges. It's their policy on reviewing, resisting, and obstructing warrant requests. And she goes through some of the smaller charges that she wants to subject to special review because they can often be used to cover up a bad arrest. So those are the kinds of charges that I was referring to in this item and in item 28.
Well, do we want to reference the charges set forth in paragraph 28 then? Because then we have a good definition of what this is meant to encompass.
Yeah, that was kind of a loose use of words in the subparagraph 4 there, contempt of cop. Mm-hmm. It comes from a law review article. It's a colorful word, but it should probably be there should probably be a more clear reference to what's included in item 28.
So are we changing that to have point of reference to that? Are we? So is the recommendation that we're changing to reference that item 28 down there now, or is it changing from item 4 to disrespect and resistance to police authority, or both?
I would say summaries of the charges set forth under paragraph 28 below.
Okay, that makes it nice and clean. Okay. All right. Good. Yes, Vice Chair Root.
I don't know how to resolve. I guess this is a question to Eric. Looking at numbers 3 through 7, I think, about reporting on lots of different types of police activities, it strikes me that this is an enormous amount of information of many different types about use of force, about people who are homeless, about people who are going through mental health crises, about complaints. This is hundreds of incidents, probably, and it's not clear to me where this information is supposed to come from or how, what it means that a commission is producing this. I mean, the police have a lot of this information. I don't quite understand what it means for the commission to prepare all these reports of individual incidents. I think they're all important types of activities that we want to understand better in our community, but how the commission will report on each individual one, I'm not clear about.
Did you, Vice Chair, have more of a narrower focus on what then they should report on, or have you got that far yet in regards to?
It's really a question. I mean, the idea is to report on many, many incidents of different types, and I'm trying to understand how that would happen, how it could be accomplished by a commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
Well, this does reference examples of case summaries. I didn't go look at this, but maybe if we look Okay, well,
The case summaries have to come from some information.
right,
Where is the information gonna come from, and who's gonna get it, and who's gonna, write these little kind of abstracts, and how are they gonna have access to the material, and how does that, I don't quite understand
okay, that's a
how to
different,
make it happen.
that's a different concern that I was understanding you to make.
Yeah.
Well, take an example, look at item 32, for example. That has to do with encounters with homeless people. The commission would investigate instances where the police officers transport or arrest people who are homeless, prepare a brief summary of the facts in each incident. That's where the information comes from. The police department.
Well, does this mean that the police are going to create a report of each incident in order to share it with us, and we're going to kind of review it, and then that's going to become in our report? I'm trying to get kind of a practical understanding of how this knowledge would.
A few sessions ago, Deputy Chief Gonzalez gave us a list of incidents where police officers encountered homeless people. I think that's what it was. And he had prepared some summaries. And then, of course, you've got police reports that are always made when police have encounters with people. So that's the basic data or material from which these things would be prepared.
Maybe I'm trying to understand the difference between a report from the police department and a report from the Oversight Commission. For example, the police department are currently giving the city council regular reports of use of force incidents. Those are reports from the police department based on information in their records.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an ELPD report.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
So
Are you wanting a report from the police department that would be made available on the police department website? Or are you saying you want a report from the police department that the Oversight Commission will publish and say, this is a report from the police department? Or are you saying that the Oversight Commission is really going to have the capacity to look at those reports and be able to learn more about some of those incidents so that the report becomes their report? I'm sort of looking at the issue of who is speaking and who is accountable. And, if somebody reads this, how do they understand what it is that they're looking at and whose information it is? Who the source is?
Well, if you give the source, then you can report it, even if the source is not the commission's original work, I presume.
Did you want to make a comment, City Manager Lahanis?
Yeah, Chris is kind of getting to the exact issue I kind of tried to raise earlier, and probably not very articulately, that a staff person, an administrative staff person for this commission, really is just going to be going down the hall asking the police department for lots of information. And that's going to be where they're going to get their information from. They're not going to have a pipeline to information. They're not going to have access to these reports, the data. It's all going to be produced by the police department because they're the keeper of the records. So I kind of agree that I don't think this group is going to probably produce a report. They could ask for the information and a report on a regular basis from the police department, and the police chief can provide a report. Maybe a better way of saying it, but I think that might be probably what you're looking for, not producing the report themselves, because they're not going to be the keeper of any of these records, and they're not going to have a staff person that we would hire on a part-time basis to do boards and commission minutes and postings to the website and do that sort of administrative task are probably not going to be the same person who's going to do the deep level research and getting this information. They wouldn't have access to it anyway, because unless you're a police department employee, you can't even get into the systems. You're not allowed to. So, Chief can correct me on that. But Chief Johnson, doesn't someone have to have a background check and be certified in the department to be able to even look at the information system?
Yep, that's correct. I mean, we can redact stuff, like we do it in the FOIA stuff, but normally to have access to it, we have to be sworn police officers to get some of that information that it's in the document. Deputy Chief Gonzalez has a lot of experience with that. He has that little clearer answer.
Now, cannot the commission ask for summaries of these encounters? The police department give them to the commission, and then the commission publish it in its annual report, so that members of the public wouldn't need to go rooting around through city council minutes or minutes of this, that, or the other commission to find it. It would all be put in one location, available to the public, suitably laundered, so that there's no confidential information being released.
Yeah, it just seems
we work.
Go ahead, Chief Johnson. Please go ahead.
No, currently we give a report to the HRC once a year. And that captures some of the stuff. So I can see us doing that for the commission in the future, like a yearly type or quarterly type of report with some of this information. But like Mr. Lahannis talked about, it's not necessarily the commission creating the report. I would create the report against the commission. That may be a little cleaner.
I saw that you. Thank you, Chief Johnson. Did you have something to say, Deputy Chief Gonzalez, to the question to you by chance, or did that get covered?
No, the chief covered it. I think generally for a lot of the systems, there's user agreements and things like that we would have to review to make sure the proper access is granted for individuals. But the other thing too that I just wanted to add is that a lot of police reports also contain lien information, and that's always something that creates a concern for us to make sure that lien information is not dispersed or disseminated improperly.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Please go ahead, Commissioner Rowe, and then Commissioner Boyle, I saw.
Yeah, so I think this is a matter of transparency, right? And in that sense, this is not the commission having to produce this report. It's the commission packaging this report for the public, right? I think what Eric noted is important is that the average person who might want this information very often doesn't know where to look. And if they have to start rooting around on various city websites and, let me try to see if it's in this drop-down menu, and let me open this PDF and this PDF, right? Then they're likely to give up, right? So just in terms of transparency, in terms of making sure that the public has the information that we want them to have, the commission would be charged with putting all of this together, right? And so, as Chief Johnson noted, that might mean the police department adding a few things to what they're already doing for the HRC. And then, we would have, again, those same administrative conversations about how that takes place. But I don't see this necessarily as the commission itself writing this report so much as putting things together in a manner that is more readily available to the average person.
That's huge, and to me, when I hear you talk, that's really the heart and soul of what I think is important when it comes to this annual reporting and the information being available, because it's hard right now, if not accessible in some ways. I'm sorry to go ahead of you, Commissioner Broad. Please go ahead.
Well, I think those are all great points. When I look at this, it could be an enormous amount of information to call through. If we already are getting reports to the HRC perhaps we could start with those reports, looking at those reports, and see if there are other things that we think should be added to those for this annual report from the commission, so that we follow the report of what's being done already. And then if we need, I don't know what HRC gets, but if we need additional information about interactions with the mentally ill or the homeless, I don't know if those are going to be HRC. Maybe look at adding those into the report we're getting.
We definitely want to build off what we're already doing for sure. Anyone else? So where are we at with the annual reporting then? So I know Commissioner Boyle kind of wrapped that up in a way where we're using the HRC format and building off that and including some things in, if I understand that correctly. And is that okay with everyone? Or I'm sorry, Commissioner Williams, please go ahead.
This is a long shot, but I'm wondering if we could scratch the itch by saying annually the commission shall produce or compile a report including da 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 da. Would that respond to some of the comments?
Does that help everyone that's kind of spoke to the issue a little bit? Commissioner Horo.
I think this is a semantic issue, right? We might say the commission will make available a report including, right? Which doesn't necessarily imply that it would be the commission producing that report.
How do you feel about that, Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes, Vice Chair Root, go ahead.
This conversation is very, very helpful. I would just suggest we take out number 2, its work priorities for the coming year. That really strikes me as being quite different. And the Oversight Commission will need to do that, and that's related to coming up with a request for budget. But I think it's a very different kind of thing than these reports about what has happened during the past year. It's a small point.
Does anyone have any problems with striking 2? Yes, Commissioner Williams,
make
go ahead.
that separate somehow.
I thought item 24 was going to attract more attention than it did. The commission is going to prioritize its work and cut down what possibly do less than it's being asked to do. I can imagine that in the future we might get people on the commission who are not as liberal or work oriented as those of us on this Zoom meeting are, and people in the public might complain that the commission is not doing what we expected it to do. It's it's coddling the police or something like that. In which case, it would be useful to make the commission accountable by making the commission explain to the public, if you're not going to do everything you're supposed to do under this ordinance, tell us exactly what your priorities are for the coming year. And that way people can hold the commission accountable. So that was the thinking behind that item 2. Maybe it doesn't belong in item 25, but the commission should. If the commission is going to have the power to prioritize its work, it should have the responsibility to declare to the public what its priorities are.
You're muted, Vice Chair Root.
I affirm that there should be such a report. It just seems to me it's part of a different document than all these other reports of police activities. It's just putting it in a different place.
Does a different place come to mind for you, Commissioner Williams, where you'd like to see that, or that could be?
I'm sure there are many different places I can stick it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Get the idea across.
All right. All right.
Stick it in 24. Stick it in 24.
All right, let's jump back to item 24, work priorities. We're going to look at taking item 2 from 25 and stick it, as Commissioner Williams says, to work priorities in item 24. Does anyone have any issues with that? Everyone comfortable with that change? Is taking that out from item 25. We're good with that as well? Yes, Commissioner Boyle, go ahead.
Is it going to, is 24 going to include that the commission has the authority to prioritize its work and that annually it will produce a report that summarizes its work for the previous year and outlines its priorities for the coming year?
I think so. I think Vice Chair Roos in agreement with that as well, based on the head nod
That's
from
sort of
saying.
similar to what the other commissions do to council each year.
Good. So we came to a great solution on that. Anything else for 25 before we move on? Did we get to a place where we can move on for 25? All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to 26. Authority to recommend changes in policy and practice. The commission may work recommendations to the city regarding policy and practice in areas with the commission's scope. Reactions, changes, or recommendations? All right, we'll go to 27. Authority to investigate grant opportunities. The commission may investigate and pursue grant or funding opportunities to help improve the criminal justice system in East Lansing. The commission may investigate and pursue grant or funding opportunities to help improve the criminal justice system in East Lansing. Any recommendations, changes, or edits to that language? Did I hear someone? Yes, Vice Chair Root.
Is there a reason that number 26 talks about areas in the commission's scope, but 27 talks about a larger thing, which is the criminal justice system in East Lansing? I'm not sure how the Oversight Commission could pursue grant funding for things that are not in the commission, within the commission's scope.
I'm not clear that there are funders out there that specifically design grants that fit the scope of the East Lansing Police Oversight Commission.
Well, then, you could talk about, could investigate grant opportunities and recommend grant opportunities about, related to the criminal justice system in East Lansing to the city or something. But I don't see how the Oversight Committee can implement a grant that's outside of its scope. Which what pursue a grant sounds like to me. But recommending it to other folk would be fine, who have the responsibilities within the city government.
So I apologize, Vice Chair. So what are you saying to, as far as a change or a recommendation to the language? I apologize.
Well, I was suggesting either that 27 says that it can pursue grants or funding about its area, the area within the commission's scope, or Eric said, well, maybe there isn't such a thing, and he wants the wider view of what grant funding could be investigated. And in that case, in 27, we could say investigate and recommend grant opportunities to the city regarding improving the criminal justice system in East Lansing.
Does anyone have any comments to counter that? that recommendation? All right, we'll go ahead and change that. Grant opportunities. Did you catch that, Diane, clearly? Okay. All right. I'm still a little shaky on it, and I apologize, but I'm glad you got it, and then we can kind of make sure that's done correctly to her recommendation. We'll move on to item 28, charges of disrespect, resistance to police authority. A, the commission may investigate and track criminal cases in which the city charges individuals with disrespect or resistance to policy authority or similar minor offenses under the city code. B, the commission may investigate and track criminal cases in which the county prosecutor charges individuals with disrespect or resistance to police authority or similar minor offenses. C, when those cases are finally adjudicated, the commission may publish summaries of the underlying facts in case depositions. D, the summary shall describe behavior but not include the names of individuals. And there's quite a bit of lengthy comment here. Criminal charges that allege disrespect or resistance to police authority, sometimes called contempt of cop charges, can cause direct harm to those arrested, violate their constitutional right, alienate large segments of the population, and making policing less effective. And then it's cited C. Christie Lopez and the website in the citing point of that. And then below that is collecting information on contempt of cop charges can help the commission recognize and address patterns of unequal treatment or unnecessarily punitive law enforcement. All right. Let's open it up to any recommendation changes or edits to item 28. I saw Commissioner Rowe and then Commissioner Boyle. You're up.
This is another point where I think we need to be a little more intentional. Disrespect, resistance to police authority. I think we're better suited in identifying particular charges. So resisting and obstructing, fleeing and eluding. Again, we might have that conversation about disorderly conduct, but disrespect or resistance to authority or similar minor offenses, I think, is too broad.
I think we can all agree on that suggestion. Commissioner Boyle, do you want to comment as well?
I would just add that I would delete the word minor from both paragraphs where it appears. I don't think it helps anything, and I don't think those offenses are necessarily considered minor by the people who get charged with them. So just similar offenses.
I'm with that all the way, 100%. Does anyone else want to counter that recommendation or change?
I'm pretty sure I could go through the ordinances and find names of those charges, but I doubt whether I could go through the state statutes and find those charges. They're probably too many or in corners that I don't know exist, and it's not. It would be a lot to name all the minor contempt of cop state statutes. So I don't know whether I can do what Dr. Hero wants me to do with respect to the state statutes.
Commissioner Boyle, please go ahead.
Well, I agree you might get quite a list here, but the commission needs to know what they're supposed to investigate and track. So I think we need to identify the offenses that they are supposed to be investigating and tracking. And I think we need to decide whether what we want are the ones where the criminal cases allege some sort of physical confrontation with police officers. I think if we do that, it won't be that long a list. Plus fleeing and eluding. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good idea, because that's another one that you would probably include under this heading.
Well, in case I don't get them all, do you think I should have a catch-all phrase at the end?
I think the city attorney might be able to help with this. because they see where charges are being filed and they know what charges are possibilities. So perhaps they could recommend a list to us if we ask.
We might ask the England County prosecutor as well.
All right, I'll try and pursue
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Williams, on that. Anything else for item 28? All right, so recommendations regarding criminal charging policy. The commission may recommend that the city council make changes in policy regarding criminal charges under the city code. And then the comment section below is criminal charges can have a lifetime debilitating consequences on people who are charged and their families. The commission should be authorized to advocate policies that avoid unnecessarily punitive law enforcement and racial discrimination and disparities. Reactions, recommendations, or edits to that language for item 29 and the recommendation of charging criminal charging policies? All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, so policy to drop civic criminal charges. This is item 30. When a person has filed a mistreatment complaint and the police department has recommended criminal charges against the person under a city ordinance, the city attorney will review the seriousness of the criminal charges, the underlying behavior of the people involved in the encounter, and the alternate approaches available to the police department during the encounter. The city will not pursue the criminal charges or will dismiss charges already filed if the interest of justice and fairness would be furthered by doing so. Quite a bit of a lengthy comment below that. The provision sets a general policy for bringing or declining to bring non-serious charges. Criminal charges have debilitating consequences on people out of proportion to the threat of a person may pose to the community. Criminal charges damage a person's reputation and impose costs and deter defendants from speaking in public about their encounters with the police. In some cases, minor criminal charges have been used to divert scrutiny from allegations of police misconduct, and the fair course of action may be to drop those charges. And this section is adapted from policy on reviewing, resisting, and obstructing warrant requests through the in-county prosecutor's office. And then it goes on to say whether charges should be refused or dropped in any particular case is a decision within the professional discretion of the city attorney. However, the city council has the authority to set general policy for all those purposes pursuant to section 4.1 of East Lansing City Charter. That's item 30. Do we have some edits, changes, or recommendations on the language or the meaning of 30? Yes, Commissioner Rowe, please go ahead.
My concern here is that this doesn't read as a function of the police oversight body, right? This reads as the ordinance recommending, suggesting something to the city attorney, the county prosecutor, various other bodies responsible for charging decisions. It's in that whole kit and caboodle of the police oversight body looking at how or why those charges might be requested, particularly in the context of an encounter that has led to a complaint. But as stated, this isn't specifically within the narrower confines of the oversight body itself. I think we might want to potentially reword this to reflect something that the police oversight body will investigate for the purposes of making a recommendation to the city attorney or the county prosecutor regarding the filing of such charges.
I definitely agree with the latter of your comment there, based on what we've done on the HRC in regards to making a formal request of charges being dropped to that regard. And that language change, the second part of what you say, I think may be the solution to that, if I understand correctly what you're meaning overall. Did anyone else have any comments or suggestions to that recommendation? Yes, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I agree that this is outside the area that the commission would actually take action in. And I don't know a way to bring it in. The critical thing is that last sentence where the city is establishing policy about dropping charges in these minor contempt of cop situations. And I guess from my point of view, and I see that it's at the limits, maybe even outside the limits of the commission's strict authority. It was awfully useful when the city dropped charges against Mr. Gaceto. I had never heard of that happening in any other city in the country. I'd like to see that put in an ordinance in East Lansing. If it's not in an ordinance, there's no opportunity for the commission to recommend the charges be dropped. So, I recognize the dilemma. I see it's a stretch.
Yes, Commissioner Rowe, please respond.
So there are a number of jurisdictions where, and I think this is where Prosecutor Senior was going, where there is an official prosecutorial policy to not charge individuals with things like resisting and obstructing or fleeing or looting, but particularly R&Os, if those are the only charges in the incident. And that's irrespective of whether or not those are, contained within an ordinance or not, right? So the oversight body can, encourage the county prosecutor and the city attorney to continue with those policies. And maybe this is a question for the city attorney, I don't see what we would be able to put within this ordinance that we're drafting that would be any stronger language than, what the county prosecutor's policy already is. And if we're, I think, again, we're outside the scope if we're trying to put within the language of this ordinance a recommendation that the city council adopt an ordinance for the city attorney to enact a similar policy, right? I think we're too far adrift at that point.
Vice Chair Rue, please go ahead.
This is something I don't know much about. I'm wondering if it's a possibility that the study committee could make recommendations to the city council about two separate ordinances. One establishing the oversight commission and another one on this specific issue. And, we wouldn't try to draft the language of this ordinance, but it could be a recommendation that they consider an ordinance such as this. Would that help?
What do you think, Commissioner Rowe?
So I think what we might be talking about then is sort of taking out 29 and 30 including those as a package in a separate recommendation to the city council? That this be a separate proposed ordinance or an amendment to a current ordinance, that the city attorney adopts such a policy? I think that would work. I think that would be a little cleaner.
Does anyone think that's a little bit much or right on point with what we want to do? Just separate this bad boy. It's nice and clean, to the point, and it just focuses on what we're talking about in our concerns when it comes to making those recommendations to council. All right, that's what we'll do, and I'm gonna run with it for our recommendation on that. So we'll move on to item 30, I believe, or excuse me. Are we on item 30 or 31?
31.
All right, thank you. I'll move to item 31, use of force incident summaries. All right, A, the commission may investigate incidents involving use of force by police officers, regardless whether a mistreatment complaint is filed. B, the commission shall prepare a brief summary of the facts in each incident. C, annually, the commission shall publish its summaries. D, the summary shall describe behavior but not include the names of individuals. Recommendations, changes, or edits to the language of item 31.
We're going to change that the same way we changed 25. Producers or make available to the public or compile to make it more clear that the information doesn't necessarily need to originate with the commission.
That would be consistent to what we said earlier, but I'm not quite sure. Yes, Vice Chair Root.
I'm trying to understand if you had a different intent here, Eric. And I think this section A, the commission may investigate incidents, is what's different from the previous section. And I remember actually you and I have talked about this a while ago. And I think what you were suggesting is that if there were rare cases, particular cases that the commission wanted to look into a little bit more, that they would have the opportunity to do that. And if they then had something that the commission wanted to communicate about the couple of cases that they were especially concerned about, then that would be in the commission's voice. It would be a statement from them about what their concerns were and what they learned about their concerns. So it seems to me it's number A is not redundant. Point A is not redundant with the previous section. Is that right? So the reports from the commission would only be about the incidents that they looked into specifically, of course, by asking the police for more information, presumably. And if that's not it, why is there a separate point about it at all? I'm trying to figure out what's the additional significance of 31.
Makes sense to me. I won't argue against that.
Okay. So this section 30, 31, and 32 are about selective cases that the commission asks to look at further. Is that right?
Oh.
I think you're frozen, Eric. Oh dear.
Did I say both?
You did, but I don't know what that meant.
If Deputy Chief Gonzalez or somebody from the police department gives us a summary of such an incident that we want to, that the commission would want to just, put in its report as is, that would be fine. If the commission wanted to do more investigation, that would be fine. So the commission could do both.
Right. But 31 refers only to the incidents that the commission wanted to look at further, whereas 25 refers to all of them. Is that right?
You're saying that they're, you could read it that way.
I'm trying to understand what your intent is.
Yeah, well, I guess my intent in this was that the collecting of information, whether it's original information or not, it would be under these sections 31, 32, and 33. And then the reporting of the information is in section 25, the compilation of the annual report. But what you're saying is, if I understand it, you're looking very closely at it and you're saying that they're redundant.
No.
You could be right.
No.
Did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Raw? I saw your hand raised on the discussion, and then Commissioner Boyle.
I'll defer to Commissioner Boyle.
Well, here's what I understand. This is what makes sense to me that Chris is suggesting, is that paragraphs 31, 32, and 33 all are related to incidents where the commissioners decide they want to do an investigation on various incidents. And if the commission decides to do an investigation, then they have to prepare a brief summary of the facts, and they have to publish the summaries annually. And the summaries have to have certain information in them. But these requirements relate only to the incidents where the commission decided to do an investigation. Whereas 25 talks about information relating to all incidents, not just the ones that the commission investigated.
I agree with that reading.
Commissioner Rowe, please go ahead.
All I did was write it.
I guess in line with Commissioner Boyle's comments, my question is, if 25 is sort of the more all-encompassing description, whether we need 31, 32, and 33? Or can we sort of combine these ideas that, the annual report will include this information about all incidents, and there's more particular information about incidents that originated from the commission's request for an investigation, or the commission's decision to investigate incidents.
It might also help to reorder a couple of these points and maybe put the report after 32, or bring them into a group so that people have a chance to get more clarity about it.
Commissioner
And
Boyle,
it does
please.
seem important to, I think we need the authorization for the commission to investigate incidents when there hasn't been a complaint filed, if they choose to. So I think we do need these sections. 31, 32, and 33. And I like the idea of putting them earlier in the document than the annual report.
Can you stomach that, Commissioner Rowe, and combining that and having that in there as opposed to getting rid of it based on the explanations that you got? All right. I think we're good with that. And I'm just trusting that it has that language down specifically about what exactly those steps are, unless we need to repeat that for you. All right. So I'll go ahead and move on unless there's any more discussion for item 32. All right. So are we on item 32 or item 33?
33.
Thank you. All right. So encounters with mentally ill people. A, the commission shall investigate incidents where police officers transport or arrest a person who is apparently mentally ill. B, the commission shall prepare a brief summary of the facts in each incident. C, annually the commission shall publish its summaries. D, the summary shall describe behavior but not include the names of individuals. Recommendations, changes, or edits to item 33? Yes, Commissioner Boyle.
I just noticed that 31 and 32 say may investigate. 33 says should investigate. So I'm wondering why it isn't may like the other two.
No reason.
Then I'd suggest they all say may.
Yeah, we can put may.
All right, so we'll jump back to 33, strike out the word should to may, so it's consistent with the following, and then we're good on item 33, so then we can go to 34 then. Police training programs. The commission may investigate the training that police officers and supervisors receive or access. The commission may investigate the training that is available to police officers and supervisors. The commission may make recommendations regarding training. Any changes, recommendations, edits to that? Item 35, dispatch system. The commission may investigate the 911 dispatch system and availability of unarmed emergency response service agencies, such as social work agencies trained and able to alleviate dangerous or threatening situations. The commission may make recommendations to the city and county regarding these dispatch systems. And there's a comment below there. Under the Emergency 911 Service Enabling Act, MCL 484.1101, dispatch systems is generally managed at the county level. Armed police officers may not be the most appropriate responders to some calls for service. Alternate agencies such as the Community Mental Health Agency may be more appropriate for first responders. Reducing unnecessary or inappropriate dispatch of armed personnel in response to calls for service may reduce the risk of violence. The section allows the commission to explore arrangements for dispatching alternate first responders. Dispatch system item 35, recommendation changes or edits to that language or understanding. All right, I'll go ahead and move on. All right, to item 36, officers with bad reputations among criminal litigators. A, the commission may investigate Brady or do not call or similar lists maintained by police, prosecutors, criminal defenders, and courts. B, if a police department employee appears on such a list, the commission may refer that information to the police department or to the Michigan Commission of Law Enforcement Standards for their review. The comment section below that, the police, prosecutors, criminal defenders, and court sometimes compile or exchange information about police officers who have credibility problems. This may be called the Brady list or do not call list, do not call, meaning prosecutors do not call those officers as witnesses in court because cross-examination might hurt their prosecution's case. If an officer is flagged on such a list, it may signal a job performance issue. It may be appropriate for the police department to address the issue in its early intervention system or through disciplinary action. And that's item 36. Everyone's good with that? Yes, Commissioner Boyle, thank you.
Well, first of all, I find the heading very troublesome. Officers with bad reputations among criminal litigators. So if you're an effective officer and the defense attorneys lose your cases, does that mean that you get reported or get investigated by the commission? I don't think that's what this section means. So I don't know how you solve the heading problem unless you just reference Brady or similar lists in the heading, which I think you could probably do. But
I think that works. And I'm seeing a couple of head nods, Commissioner Boyle, to that recommendation.
I also want to just mention one quick thing is that some of this stuff might just be like hearsay or I don't know if this hasn't gone through any sort of a process with the employee for discipline. So I don't know what we would do with this except to get notice of it and go, okay, so we can look at it and maybe counsel the employee, but I'm not sure what we can officially do with something that attorneys say this person's on a do not call list and what we would do with that as an employer. Because I mean the person has due process as an employee. And I'm not exactly sure how this would play into that.
Did you want to respond, Commissioner Williams?
That's why it says refer. It doesn't say complain about them or recommend charges or anything. It just says refer the information that they're on a Brady list.
So the chief knows he can address it as he will.
Address it or not address it, however you want.
Does that help, City Manager, to your concern?
It does.
Okay. All right, so I'll move on to item 37 if there's no more discussion on 36. All right, so 37, lobbying. The commission may investigate the greater environment in which East Lansing's criminal justice system operates and make recommendations to the city's lobbyists to advocate law changes that may improve the system. In a comment below, police are all too often deployed to reinforce social inequities and clean up social problems that should have been addressed elsewhere. The city has a lobbyist on retainer and should deploy its lobbyists to advocate social reforms that tend to reduce the necessity to deploy police. Reactions to 37 or changes, recommendations. I see City Manager Lahanis wanted to weigh in, and then Commissioner Boyle. Please go ahead.
Commissioner Boyle can go first. I just have a concern about the order and the lobbyist works for council, not for any commission, and how that would align with council's desire in that respect.
Commissioner Boyle?
I think this should be removed. I don't think the commission needs to get involved in recommending changes to state law, which is what the city lobbyist is involved in. I think they've got plenty on their plate. They don't need to get involved in making recommended changes to legislative acts in the state of Michigan. So they don't need to make recommendations to the city's lobbyists.
Did you, yes, go ahead, Vice Chair Root.
Well, another approach would be to say that the Oversight Commission could make recommendations to the City Council that it consider asking its lobbyists to work on these issues. And I think there's a section previously about priorities of the Commission. I think this is not going to be something that the Commission would do very often. But if something came up, the Council might appreciate the Commission bringing it to their attention. And so long as it's a recommendation to the Council, and then the Council ultimately decides whether to ask the lobbyists to do something, that seems to me to make it work.
Thank you, Vice
I don't know. From my standpoint, it's a police oversight commission. It's not a criminal justice oversight commission. And I understand that when you start looking at things, you see lots of things that maybe should be changed. But I don't think that's necessarily within the scope of a police oversight commission. Cash bonds, maybe that should be changed. But that's not within the scope of a police oversight commission. So I think making changes in state law isn't within the scope of the oversight commission either.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rowe, please go ahead.
I have to agree with Commissioner Boyle here. I think lobbying is inherently political, and I think that in order to make sure that the Oversight Commission is viewed as inherently apolitical, that it would be a mistake to mention any sort of lobbying efforts or to involve the commission in any of those types of conversations.
Any more discussion on 37 in regards to, we had a suggestion of striking it, and then we had a suggestion to maybe amend it to reporting to council. But then I'm hearing a little bit more of not have it be a function overall. And I'm just wondering if there's anyone who else wants to advocate for keeping it in a way that they feel makes sense outside of Vice Chair Root's suggestion. Yes, Commissioner Williams, please go ahead.
Well, for example, we talked about encounters with homeless people. And there may be some homeless issues that could be addressed at the county or state level. We've talked about mentally ill people being having encounters with the police, and maybe the commission would want to recommend that there be more facilities for mental health. Those are a couple of areas where it's relevant to what the police do. And the fact that police are deployed to clean up problems that society creates brings this within the scope of the commission's purview.
Well, so we've heard some counters to that, and I guess maybe this will be one of the ones that I would probably entertain a motion if we're at a point where it's got to go, or we want to keep it in, or we want to make a change to it. But that's going to be up to the majority of how you want to work with that. Commissioner Harrell, can you go ahead, please?
That's what people call the police for all sorts of reasons. People call the police fairly often, even when the law hasn't been broken. And so if we, again, I think we run the risk of going too far afield. If we're going to talk about what should have or could have been done in this situation, other than calling the police, then we're talking about ultimately the role of the Police Oversight Commission being everything that people might potentially call the police for, which is an infinite list, right? At a certain point, we have to narrow the focus. And these are all legitimate concerns about who should be doing these things rather than the police. But the role of the Police Oversight Commission is when the police did something, was it appropriate? Right? Not who else could have done this thing.
Anyone else? So going back to Commissioner Boyle, and when you think about getting rid of this altogether, are we at a point where we need to make a decision on this? We want to come back to it. What are you thinking that, based on what you've heard so far, would be the best approach to your recommendation?
Oh,
yes, Commissioner Williams.
Another couple of issues that you might think about on this issue. State licensing of police officers. would be one. Another would be these statutes that we've been concerned about that make police disciplinary files confidential and not releasable to the public. I mean, a couple of states, New York, for example, that has repealed its law that makes police disciplinary files secret. Those are another couple of issues around police accountability that come from the state level that a police oversight commission might want to attack.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams, and I'll defer back to Commissioner Boyle in my question to her, and kind of really, where you're thinking we're at with how you feel about it and what's been said, and if it's something that you feel that if you haven't changed your stance, if we can make a decision on how you want to go forward with it.
Well, I changed my stance on lobbying, and I understand that individual members of the commission and individual members of this task force may want to do much greater changes to the criminal justice system than an oversight commission is tasked with doing. But I just don't think this sort of thing is within the scope of the oversight commission. We want to look at what the police department is doing and how that could be better or improved or whatever. But to get involved in lobbying, which is paying third parties to make contributions and give information to legislators, I just think that's beyond the scope of what the commission should be doing. They've got plenty on their plate without this.
Commissioner Williams, are you in a different space when you think about some of the discussion that we have had so far? Are you open to having that consensus, or would you like for us to go a little more formal with that? As far as kind of really some of the points you made in regards to the issue.
No, I understand the argument that it's outside the boundary of the commission. I understand that completely.
Okay. So you're willing to let it go? You're in consensus?
I'd like to push the commission to go beyond that boundary.
Okay. So let's go ahead and make it clean, and let's go ahead and put it to a vote in regards to, I guess I shouldn't say, but I'll entertain that so we can just make sure that we can walk away from this in a way that everyone understands what we're walking away from or what we're not walking away from. I think that's the only way we can get through this section right here on this point here. So I'd be more than willing to hear maybe a motion from Commissioner Haro, Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Root in regards to the original stance on that.
Well, my motion would be that we strike 37 lobbying in its entirety.
Moved by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Rowe. Is there any more discussion in regards to that motion? Striking 37. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Please show your hand as well so I can make sure. All those opposed, please signify that as well. 2 opposed. Motion carries. So we're striking 37 from the recommendations in section 4. We'll move on to early intervention system. Item 38. The police department may adopt an early intervention system, including ongoing hardware and support requirements and officer support services. B, the council will ensure that no impediments exist in the collective bargaining agreement with police bargaining units that impede the police department's ability to deploy an early intervention system. C, the city council will ensure the police department has adequate funding to develop, implement, and maintain the early intervention system, including ongoing hardware support requirements and officer support services. D, the Commission may investigate the early intervention system to ensure that it is effective and fully funded. E, the Commission may make recommendations regarding the early intervention system. And then there's a couple of comments below. Item A, early intervention systems are described in Samuel E. Walker and Carol A. Archibald's New World of Police Accountability. And then below that, also see Rob Arthur, How to Predict Bad Cops in Chicago, and his points referenced there in the website. And then Rob Arthur as well. We now have algorithms to predict police misconduct. Will police departments use them? And then that's cited as well. And then below that, several federal consent decrees prescribe early intervention systems, including Chicago and New Orleans. And then there's some more reference points. Consent decree, Illinois versus Chicago, which is cited in early intervention systems. Consent decree, United States versus New Orleans, early warning systems. Item B, the city contract with the Police Officers Association of Michigan, Article 27.15, prohibits some records of disciplinary action to be retained longer than 2 years. And it's cited where that's from. And then below that, such a provision might impede the operation of an early intervention system, and the city should negotiate to remove those impediments. Below that, the city's contract with the Command Officers Association of Michigan, Article 8.5b, creates a 10-day limit for bringing disciplinary charges, and then it's cited there where that's from. And then below that, the time limit may need to be extended or eliminated because the early intervention system should be able to look back over a longer period than 10 days. The look back period should probably encompass the officer's entire law enforcement career. Items D and E, an early intervention system is a management tool, and the Commission is not involved in operating, but the Commission should play a role in encouraging the police department to adopt such a system and to assure that it is effective and fully funded. And that's section 38. Thank you for bearing with me on that. Any reactions, comments, or amendments to that? Yes, please, Vice Chair, go ahead.
I don't understand the need for sections A, B, and C about the police may establish an early intervention system. The City Council will ensure that it can work and deal with the collective bargaining, and that there's adequate funding. I think the department already plans to adopt an early intervention system, and that it's part of the accreditation process that they're committed to. So I think that A, B, and C are going to happen with or without the Oversight Commission.
Is that a fact? Is that a fact, Chief Johnson? That's part of the accreditation system process that you'll be doing for the early intervention systems?
We already purchased the policy management system for the department for the accreditation piece to the puzzle. But Deputy Chief would know more about the early warning system that's required for the accreditation. He's driving that initiative in our department.
Deputy Chief?
And that's correct. Part of the MACP accreditation process is to establish an early intervention system.
Thank you, Deputy Chief and Chief Johnson. Commissioner Boyle, did you want to weigh in?
Yes, I agree with Chris that limiting it to D and E would be the way to go. And I'd say the Commission may review the early intervention system to assure that it's effective and fully funded and make recommendations regarding it. Probably could put those in one single paragraph.
Is anyone counter to knocking out A, B, and C, and then changing the language to may review, and then combining D and E together in one paragraph to read what it says in D and E? That's the fastest way I can do it. So are we good with that, or do we have a discussion to have on that from anyone that counters that? All right, as is, that's what we'll do. We'll move on that. 39, accreditation. The police department will establish and maintain accreditation with the nationally or state recognized body that accreditates police departments. B, the City Council will ensure that police departments have adequate funding to establish and maintain accreditation. C, the Commission may investigate the police department's accreditation status to assure that the department is complying and the compliance is fully funded. D, the commission may make recommendations regarding accreditations. Item C and D below, given the importance of accreditation for ensuring the quality of police services, the commission should play a role in making sure that the police department follows through with the accreditation project and the project is adequately funded. Yes, Vice Chair Root, please go ahead.
I would suggest that we take parallel action on this point. Eliminate A and B, and C, change investigate to review, and combine C and D.
All right, so knocking out A, B, and then changing language to may review, and then combining those. Does anyone have a discussion to be had with those recommendations by Vice Chair? Yes, Commissioner Josephson, please go ahead.
Well, I've raised my hand too soon. It's not to add to the discussion. It's a new comment.
Okay, just a quick second. Let's finish this thought out to make sure we're clear on that, and I'll be more than happy to get to you. So for that recommendation, is everyone good with that overall? I don't see any dissent on that, and we'll go ahead and move on to Commissioner Josephson's input. You're muted, Commissioner Josephson.
Oh, I didn't know I was ready. Okay. So I know we all know this is going to be a pretty heavy meeting. I just want to point out it's almost 9 o'clock and we still have the Section 3 draft update to go through. Can we just kind of figure out a timeline of how this is going to go? Because I'm using a family member's computer and they need to get back on it. So I just want to know if maybe we can make a motion to push the Section 4.3 to a different meeting or see how we can work it all out.
Well, I was waiting for someone to come in and maybe talk to that. So I was just trying to push through as much as I can. I had already was going to make a suggestion that we not do anything with Section 3 and just hope to goodness gracious that we can get through as much, if not all, of what we can. And I know that's not my personal decision to make, but that was what I was doing and how I was thinking about it. But we can maybe discuss real quickly about when the maximum time that people want to be on and try to get as much done as possible within that agreed time. Or I'm open to any other way that someone wants to kind of do that. Yes, Commissioner Josephson.
Just personally, I can stay until 9 p.m. today. I know that doesn't give us much more time, but that's just me personally, so I can give the computer back to the person who needs to use it. Thank you. Commissioner Harrell, go ahead.
We only have 2 items left in this particular subsection. There's item 40 and item 41. And I'm fine with, again, pushing back or receiving comments via email regarding Section 3. So I think at the very least we should finish 40 and 41.
And then, so just so I'm clear, I'm not trying to but so then you want to stop there then, and then pick up. Is that what you're kind of maybe suggesting, or are you just saying what?
I'm personally able to go later, but I would suggest that we at least do 40 and 41.
Vice.
Yes.
40 and 41. Okay, Vice Chair Root, go ahead, please.
I think we need to have a little discussion tonight about whether we are going to ask the City Council for an extension of time. I think it is impossible for us to finish in just one more meeting, which is the last meeting that is already scheduled. And I really appreciate Chuck's leadership style of trying to organically move us as far as quickly as we can. I think it has served us well so far. But I think it would probably be good to ask for an extension at our second to last meeting rather than our very last meeting that is scheduled. So I suggest we try to address that after we stop working on the recommendations tonight.
Okay, so let's go ahead and finish this subsection real quick, and then we can look up and see what it brings us. And I'm open to whatever you want to do. I'm just if you don't stop me, I'm gonna keep going. So All right, so number 40, risk management. The commission may communicate with insurance industry risk management services available to police departments. Comment below, risk management systems are described in Samuel E. Walker's and Carol A. Archibald's New World Police Accountability, and it's cited there, incredibly accountability with risk management. And then below that, the Michigan Municipal League has a risk management program directed at police departments. The website's indicated the Municipal Risk Management Authority has a risk management program directed at the police departments, which is also cited. But both the insurance industry and those interested in criminal justice reform movements share interest in reducing unnecessary violence in police work. Civil rights litigation is rare, but it can result in large damage rewards that insurance companies pay. If the insurance industry has recommendations that can prevent people from getting hurt, ideas that perhaps have not occurred to East Lansing's officials, the commission should investigate. That's item 40. Reactions, changes, or amendments to that language? I'll move on to item 41. Data analysis. The commission may collect data on racial, ethnic, and gender disparities in the criminal justice system in East Lansing. The commission may to issue reports analyzing the data and making policy recommendations. The commission may contract with qualified professional data analysts. The city will provide sufficient financial resources to cover commission's data collection and analysis. On 41. Yes, Commissioner Josephson, please go ahead.
Just a small wording error with the May 2 issue report. I feel like that's a little hard to. I feel like it could be said better as the commission may be able to use reports, or either that or get rid of the word 2.
It's a typo. It doesn't belong there.
Right.
All right. Well, you should understand. I'm reading this, and I'm trying to make sense of it, but also read it. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention, because I feel like, I'm losing my mind on some of this stuff here. So thank you.
That was a correct stumble.
Okay. All right. I've been stumbling quite a bit with the body of work that we've been doing tonight, but so then we're gonna have we have 42 reserved, and that completes this subsection there. And here we are at 8:51 p.m. And so I just want to open it up to the group. If you would like to maybe stop here and then get to Vice Chair Root's discussion, and then we can save Section 3 based on what Commissioner Heroa said, or is anyone feeling differently about that process? Yes, Commissioner Josephson.
I would propose a motion to table the rest of the review of the draft in Section 3 and also get an extension for City Council. I know there might have to be 2 motions, but that's what I would suggest.
So let's not have the meeting part there yet, if you don't mind, and just do where we're going to stop at and pick up, if you don't mind, with your motion. Can you amend that just a little bit for us?
Yeah, I make a proposed motion to push Section 3 draft to the next meeting, and as well as revisit the recommendations for the report for this current draft.
And the next meeting is not next. The next, so it's
the next normal meeting.
Do we? What's the date for the time? So I just make sure we have that, Diane, for the record.
This is like the weird extra meeting. So is it April 12th? April 12th. Okay.
Okay. All right. So is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Boyle. Is there any more discussion? Did you have some discussion, Commissioner Williams, on that?
No, I don't mind making all the revisions that people have been talking about in the past several meetings. But if we finish the Section 3, I need a couple of days to make revisions. I couldn't do it immediately. If you want to review all the revisions, you need to give me a few days after you finish the whole document. You see what I mean?
I do, and appreciated that. So absolutely. So no worries on that. We'll do what we can to make sure it's realistic for you on that end there. Is there any more discussion on the